So this week's assignment, it's time to bring sort of everything we've learned together into one final project. So in this case, I want you to build a full sort of mini level. Feel free to use any means necessary, any means you want to create the geometry. You can use prototypes, you can use just all mesh out of Maya, or even borrow aspects and sections from other levels that you've created for this class. Feel free to do whatever. So the setup here is that our heroic cowboy, our steampunk cowboy, many years ago, the cowboy's mother was a prospector, and she struck it rich. But unfortunately, her partner betrayed her and stole all the gold for himself. The cowboy's mom tracked him down, but he died before she could find out where he stowed all the gold. Recently, though, the cowboy happened upon some clues about the gold's location, but his sworn enemy overheard the plans to find it and has gotten here first with an army of desperados. They'll use any means necessary to keep the cowboy from his rightful treasure. So essentially we have a level that should have some enemies in it, and eventually at the end you'll find the treasure, the gold. The level flow, essentially I want you to follow this kind of simple setup where it's essentially we'll start in an explore space. Then I want you to valve the players so that they can't get back and so that there is pressure. Have a small sort of combat encounter, move on to another explorer, valve again, and then move on to a larger combat setup. And then after that larger combat setup, you find the treasure. So fairly simple. Use what you've learned about speaking to the player with the voice of archetypes. Try to incorporate, aspects of each. Begin, of course, with the herald and the mentor. The mentor should decrease over the course of the level as the voice of shadow increases. So that's essentially it. Think about how long a lot of these assignments have taken you, and there's a lot I'm asking from this particular assignment. So, this doesn't necessarily need to be an extremely long level, but think about what is required in order to fill each one of these particular requirements and build the size that you feel works and is necessary. So in this week's package file, you'll find after you import it, there is a week 10 assignment ready for you. So this essentially provides you everything you need in order to get started with this. Of course, it provides you with the cover objects that you had from our combat lecture, and of course the treasure coins to find, and of course the gold treasure box at the end. So, but got some extra tools for you this time. So essentially here we've got the enemies are sort of broken up into two groups. So if you look at, bring the hierarchy over here, I've got enemy group 1, and they're essentially, they're in sort of this this empty actor, empty object that I use as sort of a group. And then I've got group 2 over here, and then I have these regions right here, these trigger regions that essentially activate and activate and deactivate each of these groups. So if you look at each one, you can select one right here and head over here. Let's see. So right here, as you can see, this one is assigned to enemy group 2, and the activate button is unchecked, versus this one right here, this trigger, is assigned to enemy group 2 and it's set to activate. These over here, so right here, this is set to enemy group 1 and activate, and this is enemy group 2 and not activate. And so essentially what these are going to do is turn on and off those enemy groups, so that way you can spawn in the enemies when you want to. So actually, if you want to see the trigger volumes, you can actually select them all, and there's a script on here, hide objects in the game, that you can turn off for these objects, and that way they'll actually appear in game and you can take a look. So this one should unspawn group 1. Obviously there's no one there just yet. This should spawn group 1, unspawn group 1. As you can see, like, they turn on and off exactly where they were. Turn off, on, that sort of thing. Here is the deactivate for group 2, activate, deactivate. There we go. Also here at disposable are this idea of checkpoints. So if we're going to have enemies that might kill us, then we need to have checkpoints in case you die. So what I have here is essentially, you see this gold ball. This gold ball is essentially the starting point for the player. So as you see, I have it over in this corner. The player starts at it. And then I have this blue region right here, which is paired to this checkpoint object right here, the silver ball. So checkpoint 1. And so the idea is that when you run into this trigger, it essentially moves the gold ball to where the silver ball is. So I'm going to go ahead and run over there. You don't see it happen, but there's a checkpoint. And I actually have created a kill region as well, so if I jump off this cliff, I die. And then I respawn at the checkpoint instead of at the original spot where I was. So you can easily create checkpoints and duplicate these. If you select them both at the same time and hit Control D, you'll duplicate them both. So let's go ahead and just put these over here. Oops. Let's see, and put that checkpoint over here. So since I duplicated these at the same time, it automatically updated the assigned checkpoint for this particular trigger. So as you can see, it assigned it to checkpoint 1 with the 1 in parentheses, and so that's the name of this spot right here. So if I go over to this corner, I'll hit this checkpoint. Let's try jumping off. As you can see, I started on that corner. If I run over here and run through the trigger volume here, it's going to set this checkpoint. There we go. So you probably want to set a checkpoint right at the start of each combat area. Go ahead and create a kill plane or duplicate this and put this underneath any bottomless pits, things like that. And remember that you need to look at sort of the navigation of your spaces. Remember that the AI of our enemies and how they traverse around space is fairly limited. This is not a super complicated sort of setup. So you may need to make your combat spaces a little simpler, and they may stand out a little bit from your exploration spaces. That's just fine for this particular assignment. So anyway, I think that is basically it. Good luck, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your assignments.